Hello everyone and welcome back to Combat Mission. We're actually going to be playing Combat Mission Black Sea, their most recently released title. This is set in a slightly futuristic slash at the moment sort of timescale in a fictional flashpoint which is taking place in Ukraine. I would just like to say this game was announced and in development years before the unfortunate events that are currently going on over there, so don't take this as some sort of nasty hip hop. Unfortunately, it's just them being quite good at forecasting, which again they did with one of their previous titles, Operation Combat Mission Shock Force, which was being aimed around a flashpoint in Syria, and we all know how that went down. In any case, we're going to head straight into a campaign. We could be the Russians, we could do training, but really they're kind of split into three: the Russians, US, and Ukraine. I think most people would be doing the top two. I'd quite like to have a look at this sort of conflict from the Ukrainian point of view. So we're going to jump into Ukrainian tactical group and have a look at what this sort of thing is going to be like. This isn't some sort of taking the scale isn't kind of a I'm so awesome I'm doing it on Iron. I think for the most part Iron is what you really want to play on, because I think it's actually the best experience of combat mission games, just in terms of how it works, in terms of spotting contacts and other things. So yeah, I mean that's what I've been told and that's what I've seen so far. So I'm not very good at the game, so we might just fail after one mission, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and carry on. So situation is, since the hostilities began earlier this month, Russian brigades were being poised along the northeastern border of Ukraine, threatening Kiev and forcing Ukrainian brigades of Joint Command North to stay near our capital. Wow, reading. Not long ago, the Russians, fed up with continued resistance from our forces to the south, jumped across the northeastern border and advanced towards Kiev. The apparent... Am I saying Kiev right? I think it's Kiev. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. The apparent goal of this new offensive is to threaten Kiev with capture and force the US to the negotiating table. The Russian advance has been relentless despite fierce resistance and much sacrifice on the part of our fellow units in Joint Command North. So it looks like... They're kind of beating us at the moment, so yeah, it looks like they're doing quite well. The Russians basically just kind of, it seems like they were being stopped and they've looped around to try and attack from a different angle. So it looks like the Russians are now within 40 kilometers of Kiev. So that's we're basically looking like we need to, yeah. Wow, the government's been relocated. In any case, our mission is to head north and recapture our brigade's installation. So basically I think we're just going to go and head straight north and try and force them back and blunt their assault. Good. Okay, friendly commands. So we have 3rd Battalion Tactical Group, so we've got a battalion, that's pretty cool. That means we'll probably have a couple of companies. This Mech Infantry Battalion, so we've got some tanks, and we've got high quality equipment and personnel. So it looks like we're kind of more, one of their better trained regular battalions with modern equipment, rather than the normal Ukrainian army, which is sort of things left over from the Cold War and not particularly awesome training. So we have 3 company tactical groups. So we basically got 3 companies, and they're good. I mean, 3 rifle platoons, weapons platoon, and a tank platoon per company. That's very cool. Yeah, and we also have specialist teams attached, so that's mortar battery, observer vehicles, and mortar platoons. It's fine, but it looks like we've got a bunch of specialist assets to take out vehicles and things. So that's good. Yeah, so we've got the best equipment, so I shouldn't waste it, because if I waste it, then Ukraine probably won't do very well in the coming battle. Enemy forces. The Russian unit operating in our sector is the 39th Motor Rifle Brigade. Most of the 39th is equipped with the BMP-2, although 1 rifle battalion is reported to be equipped with BMP-3Ms. Okay, cool. So they're the modern variant, and yeah, they've got a tank battalion there as well. I'm not liking all of this, I have to admit. Okay, so it looks like they've pushed on, and they've reached the limit of their advance. They need to reorganize and refuel. So they've broken through, and now they've stopped. And I think we're immediately hitting them and not letting them rest. And I think that's the general plan, which is, it's realistic. That's what would happen. So we need to get 12k up the top. And first company is going to dismantle the Russian screen. So it looks like when the Russians stop, they'll have sent out kind of a small vanguard screen to put in front of them in their defense, as a sort of early warning system and defense that will give them time for the rest of them to organize if they are attacked. So we need to punch through, and I would imagine we need to punch through fairly quickly. So yeah, we need to try and yes. The first mission is to punch through. Second mission will be first and second company will punch through the Russian motor rifle battalion. Okay, so we need to take a town, and 3 is to secure it. So it looks like we're using a mixture of first and second companies, which is good. And then in mission 4, it looks like we're going to use all of our companies, like everything that we had, to take out our previous base and kind of recapture it. So that looks really good. You will not receive any ammunition resupply, personnel replacement, or vehicle repairs during this campaign. Okay, because it's taking place over 1 day. Right, so we need to really try and not lose any of our infantry because I'm very, very difficult later on. So the first mission, it looks like we've got 1 company. Second mission, we've got 1 and 2, and third mission, we've got everything. So men we're going to have is going to be third company, because I would imagine by then first company is going to be pretty wrecked, seeing it's been in every single them pretty heavily wounded from my first engagement because I'm terrible at this game. Right, situation. We know really rough for this situation because I've read through it all again. If we quickly jump into tactical map, looks like, oh, don't we just love big open areas? Wow, that's going to be fun. So my infantry are going to be staying in their vehicles. This is ridiculous. Look at that, it's completely open. I suppose I could try and, but I'm worried because they could have man pads and things along here. So if I try and march too many vehicles that way, they'll get potentially hit from the sides. Oh, this is going to be fun. So we need to secure the north exit. So we need to capture that and secure the town. So that's, yeah. So we need to take that and destroy the enemy units. Okay, so we just need to take this entire place. Very simple. We're there. Enemy are there. We need to take this. Cool. Right. So. Okay, so it's basically a road reconnaissance battalion, light unit mounted in utility trucks. Okay, so in theory, it should be fairly easy. We'll see. Advance the force across the open field towards your objectives. If enemies are spotted, overwhelm them with concentrated fire from BTRs, since you're likely to outgun any Russian forces encountered in the area. They are most likely to withdraw north along the highway, so it is recommended that you move a platoon to cover the north stretch of the highway as soon as possible. Okay, so they're going to try and move there. So they want us to move a platoon up this side as fast as possible. So what I could do is maybe push a platoon very, very quickly up to here and provide cover and sort of bound up to try and secure this. So if we see them retreating, they're going to try and retreat north. So I think north is that way, maybe? No, north must be that way. I don't know, but we want to try and cover this part here as fast as we possibly can because they're going to be trying to escape. Okay. So we want to destroy the units, and to destroy the units we need to be fast. So it looks like we need to move up quite quickly. Right, this should be fun. Nothing much happens just at the moment. All the vehicles are just kind of moving their way, making their way up slowly. I've got my tanks out in front. I want them to be taking the majority of any initial engagements from the enemy, because let's be honest, they're the least spongy, least likely to get some serious damage. Fortunately, as we move up here, the enemy spots us before we spot them, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a nice vehicle up there in the tree line, which is just nicely taken out one of my vehicles, and we just love. This fight isn't really going in our favor. That tank does take out the first enemy vehicle, so that's good. But then that vehicle's definitely gone. And unfortunately, the enemy then, as you can see, have start lasering and taking out our tanks, as well as completely and utterly destroying that vehicle and all of the people inside it. So we've actually lost third squad from, I believe that's first platoon. Yeah, I think it's, yeah. So yeah, that's great. To one enemy vehicle down, so 2 of ours down, and loads of infantry, and then none of the enemies, so barely being sighted. So I've decided to keep pushing my tanks up in front, but to hold position with all my infantry carriers, because they just seem to be so very squishy. This is where the battle starts to go in our favor. Even though we've completely lost another vehicle, so I think it's 3 vehicles on our side. No, maybe just 1 vehicle on our side gone. 2, because if you count the other one. We do actually then start to take out the enemy. For instance, there is a single infantryman over here that gets wiped out. There are also some further enemy vehicles that kind of pop in and out of the battlefield. Yeah, so there we go. That's the infantryman getting killed. And then also these vehicles here start to fire at this poor tank over here. The tank goes, you know what? Honey Badger don't care. And he then goes, oh, hello. I see you. And then, so there we go. Our tanks are finally starting to get in this fight. And as you can see, they are just destroying vehicle after vehicle after vehicle on the enemy side. So that's fantastic news. We need to get rid of all these vehicles for our infantry to be able to move up without getting completely slaughtered. Not as good a turn. I don't think we take out any other enemy vehicles. We don't really have any spots. And unfortunately this tank here has his front gun knocked out, so he can't actually use his main gun anymore. This pesky vehicle here is proving to be extremely difficult to deal with. And that one over there proceeds to then miss another one retreating out of the tree line. So we need to be getting these tanks killing these vehicles, because I don't want to move the rest of my forces up until after they're dead, because it only takes 1 volley like that and the entire of that vehicle and all its occupants are dead. This is a good turn actually. It starts off pretty slow. I've basically moved these tanks into position so they can actually see through the smoke at the 2 enemy vehicles that I'm aware of, which is this guy over here. And there's another one over here somewhere. But as you can see, the tanks are now getting into position. All 4 of them, even though the one at the top here doesn't actually have a cannon anymore. He's still there taking all the shots, and I quite like that because that guy's already wounded. It'd be good if the enemy kept firing at them. So original shot, he just misses. However, things are looking good towards the end, and actually this goes all the way to the end. Boom, first hit, very satisfying. He's gone down. There is another one over here, which you can see there, who doesn't last much longer either. And actually, boom, there. And then right at the end, boom, there's another one appeared there. So there's three enemy vehicles at the end of 1 minute, which is okay. So I've started bringing some of the infantry up, the remains of that first platoon, obviously because they had one of their cars taken out right early in the beginning. But unfortunately, one of my tanks with the gunner decides to start retreating, and actually there's still an enemy vehicle active in this tree line here. So I'm worried about that when he's trying to take them out. So these 2 tanks here are the only ones that I have here that are able to shoot him, and neither of them spot him. It's quite a tough fight here. I bring my tanks up. That vehicle lasts a while, but does eventually succumb to 2 shots from 2 different tanks at the same time. So that's why the crater's so deep. Over here, this tank started to be engaged from missiles, but luckily its anti-missile defense system blocked both of them. And then obviously it scans around, tries to find what was firing at it, and suddenly a dude with an RPG shows up. And again he fires, and it's intercepted. But he realizes the machine gun doesn't work, so takes him out with a cannon shot. So things are looking good, but I need to get those infantry in there to protect this tank from close quarters. Bit of a cool minute for these guys here. Obviously I'm putting a high risk maneuver here, bringing in these two vehicles with their infantry dismounts on them, and basically rushing them forward to secure this north exit, and kind of flank any enemies that are in the town and kind of cut off their retreat. So as you can see, as they're pulling in, I have a brief scare as the enemy fire some sort of fighting over there. In the background, there's some infantry lying in the grass there, which wasn't spotted until now. So obviously these guys are now dismounting, set up, and while the IFE starts to engage some of those contacts in that building. So it's cool, it's fun. And as you see, there's more infantry in there. So hopefully they're going to be able to solidify their force in this forest, and we can start taking this place out. So now comes the move into the right flank of the enemy, or their left flank, but my right flank proper. As you can see, the infantry dismounts that came off last time are still over there, and they are currently engaging small arms fire with some enemy contacts in some of these buildings over here. There are some infantry spotted on the original enemy's axis of advance, And as you see, it's a 2-man RPG team, not one. My men are starting to move into the town proper. As you can see, they're dismounting and getting into some of these buildings for cover. And we've got a solid presence in the town at this point. Obviously, we are then starting to be engaged with some of the infantry in these buildings. Small arms fire, nothing much. Unfortunately for them, we have a tank in the area, and the tank hears that friendlies are starting to be engaged and doesn't really like it, so that doesn't last very long. This minute is where you really start to see just how many forces I have arrayed on the enemy's left flank, my right. We have, as soon as they kind of open up where their locations are, it's very, very quickly spread between everyone, and the infantry are the first ones usually to spot them, but then as soon as the vehicles get involved, as you can see across all sides, we're in a very good position here. Across the rest of the front, as you can see, I feel safe to push up the rest of my armoured infantry vehicles. So they're pushing up to the front, and we do spot some infantry contacts along there, as well as some further into town. So I think this could potentially still be a very dangerous proposition to kind of breach into this frontier. So this is one of the worst turns we've had in a long time. That tank goes down with some incredibly heavy pieces of equipment on it. Turns out the Russians are actually all over this front line, so as my guys get out, we're immediately engaged by Russian positions in and around the front. So as you can see, the fighting is fierce. We lose some crazy casualties as they're all disembarking, and the whole thing just isn't really going the way we'd hoped. At least a couple of them are surrendering, but for the most, we're gonna win, but we took far too many casualties with our guys coming out and getting out of these vehicles. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to hope that we don't lose too many more, because the fighting here is just absolutely ridiculous. Oh well, at least the tanks are coming up. Yeah, we lost way too many in that assault. Our left flank is basically torn to shreds. We've got this one vehicle behind those trees there who's kind of holding it down, and then this infantry squad which is mostly intact. However, we do have Russians in this field that have managed to escape the initial incursion between friendly casualties, etc. So I'm a little bit worried about that, especially when there's quite a lot of them still left, and they are actually able and in a position to start engaging some of the Esprit infantry. My men are spotting and killing, especially on this very, very solid right flank of mine, enemy infantry to take out. But as you can hear, some guys in the forest, in these fields there, are engaging some of these infantry, and yeah, I'm a little bit worried about my left flank. This location 2 is going to be tough to break. So we'll see how it works. So it looks like we don't even need to go in and assault. We got an Ukrainian army total victory. So it looks like we've secured all of the points because the enemy surrendered, and we destroyed the Russian forces. We had 23 men killed, 11 men wounded, 1 man missing. So we made a guy surrender, and we lost 5 of our armored vehicles. We killed 31, wounded 15, captured 6. Taken out 7 enemy vehicles, and only 2 of the enemy men were left alive. So we destroyed, actually just by holding off like this, we actually completely destroyed all of the Russian forces that were in those buildings. I think because of the rush there, we stopped the Russians from being able to retreat to further positions inside the town. So while we did catch them, it was a costly move, because that meant that, as you can see, we took quite a lot of casualties. So for the most part, my dudes are okay. They're not particularly well, they're messed up. We've got fire vehicles and loads of wounded, but because it ended so quickly, I think a lot of those wounded and minor wounds shouldn't really count, and we should be okay. But we definitely had a solid victory there. So in any case, I hope you've enjoyed this battle. I certainly did. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I've not played this scenario before. However, I think if I'd rushed everything forward like it told me to do in the briefing, with all of my vehicles forward. I think these positions on the front here would have inflicted some horrific casualties on me, so I'm glad I didn't. Cautious is the way to play. I think I'm going to go for the rest of this campaign. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and I shall be seeing you again.